I was traveling to the States. I began speaking at Southern Israel once again at the end of January, and it was quickly shut down by the coronavirus. But I got one trip in to Atlanta and to New York. And on my way out of Atlanta, basically I was in a store buying a soft drink, and they had a book stand. And on that book stand was a bunch of pocketbooks. You know, they sell all these pocketbooks, pocketbooks from Harvard University and different topics. And one book actually caught my attention, not because so much the topic, but just the covers. As an author, as someone who does my own artwork, for better or for worse, I'm always interested in new ideas. And this cover is very simple, very plain, the lettering as well. And it struck me, so I walked over and I picked it up, take a look at it, and see if I could use the same type of a thing for cover of my own book. But it was the topic that caught my interest that actually made me buy the book, and I figured I could read it in the plane. And it was just basically mindfulness, just block letters, mindfulness. And it's a topic that has interested me for a long time. I'm always interested in any technique that I could use to expand my mental capability. And mindfulness is something that I know is important in terms of maximizing your potential, and certainly for peace of mind as well. So, but the book, figured I couldn't lose, what didn't cost that much in the first place. So I took it with me and I sat down on the airplane the moment we were belted in, took the book out and I began to read. It was a little bit interesting in the beginning, I have to say, but it did not take very long before I lost my interest in the book, because most of the things that were being reported and being said were things either that I'd already known before or worked out. And the truth is, it reminded me of some material I had actually written in a book previous to that time, which was actually called Where Are My Emotions Now? And even though the book was not so much about mindfulness, it was more about, really it was about mindfulness. I just didn't use the names so much, but it was more about trying to be in the moment, which is really what mindfulness is all about, and checking out where your emotions are. I saw my own davening, for example, my own prayer, my own tefillah, that I would drift. And when I could bring my emotions back into the picture and unify with my thoughts, so it was a whole different experience, a whole different davening experience. I tried the same thing with my learning. I would learn in the mornings, and rather than just focus on the words, I'd really focus on the words and try to feel the words as I was going through it. And it was a whole different experience. And I realized how much of my own personal life was basically, it was missing out on, because I wasn't always there. And you think you're there. Sometimes you can tell you're very distracted. You can see that you're looking someplace else, or something else has caught your attention. But a lot of the time we go through life and we think that we're there, but we're not really there. And today more than ever, life is extremely distracting, because we have cell phones and we have all kinds of other forms of communication, and so much going on, and life is moving very quickly, and we're very distracted. And what many people may not realize, we all know that Amalek, mentioned in Parashat Bashalach, is the nemesis, the antithesis of the Jewish people, to such an extent that God takes his attack against the Jewish people personally, and swears to be at war against Amalek until the end of time. And we think of Amalek as attacking us with weapons and even black magic and things like that. But what people don't realize is that the number one weapon that Amalek uses against a person, especially a Jew, is distraction. Distraction divides us and doesn't give us a complete heart, especially when it comes to avodas Hashem, to serving God. So yeah, I thought, this is something that I should make myself more aware of and try to share this information. So I wrote the book called Where Are My Emotions Now? About this very topic. And as I read the book, I picked up in the bookstore at the airport. So I really, it was like they're talking about these things as if it's all new, and it was for so many people. And they're talking about how much it enhanced relationships and business relationships and just productivity of companies. And I'm thinking to myself, well, of course, what do you expect? I mean, this is how a human is supposed to function. And as I gave it some more thought, I began to realize that one of the reasons why it was so obvious, but not for a reason that was obvious to me at first. It was more just after thinking that basically that's what Torah is all about. Torah is about mindfulness. It's about being in the moment. It's about being in the here and the now. And the mitzvahs promote this. And chaval is man, as they say over here in Israel, right? It's a shame because for the most part, for a lot of people, mitzvahs have become very perfunctory, things we have to do. It's like our ticket to get to the world to come, or not to get punished in this world. You got to do the mitzvah, you have to daven, get up in the morning, somewhat on time, and put on your tefillin, or open your tehillim, and like, because that's what God expects us to do, and we have to be obedient servants of God, which of course we have to do. We have to be, but the reality is it's not what God wants ultimately. It's not the ultimate reason for Torah. It's true, 100%. This world is only a corridor to the world to come. We're told not to get too comfortable, not to get too dug into this world, because you can lose yourself and lose your perspective and lose track of what you're doing, and because the world to come, that's where it's at. But that doesn't mean that you cannot have some of the world to come in this world as well. What is that supposed to mean? Well, sounds very strange. It's like having your cake and eat it too. Well, there is a way to do that. You pay a price. You pay. It takes work. You have to work at it, right? That's what it's all about. Work. You got to put yourself into it. Mesiras nefesh, self-sacrifice. But once you do it, it's an amazing thing. And the truth is, we know this already. Where do we see this? We see this by Shabbos. And Yom Tov too, but Shabbos specifically. We're told, the Talmud says, we're told that Shabbos is 1/60th of the world to come. 1/60th of the world to come. Why? Why do we need it? Why is it important? If Shabbos is enjoyable in its own right, we make a Suda, the davening is more relaxed perhaps, basically. If basically we have an experience of Shabbos that we enjoy, why must it somehow be attached to the world to come? Is that the basis of the enjoyment of Shabbos? Is there something else going on over there? Something else going on. Something very profound. And it helps to know this, because if you don't, you can miss out on what Shabbos has to offer. But it's not just about Shabbos. The truth is, Shabbos is teaching us about everything. It's really the model for the rest of the week. It's not that there's 6 days and you end and then Shabbos comes. There's something about Shabbos that's a clue to the previous or post 6 days of the week. That's built into Torah. And the more you look into Torah, and certainly the deeper you go into Torah, because there are 4 levels: Pshat, Rebbe, Drush, and Sod. There's the simple explanation. There is the deeper explanation, the hints. And then you have Medrash, you have the exegetical teachings of Torah, and of course you have Sod, which is Kabbalah. Each level takes you further and further into the concepts, into the ideas. And it's a gold mine. It's a virtual gold mine of ideas, but life force. And, the world defines, and I have a quote right here, the world defines mindfulness in the following way: the quality or state of being mindful, obviously, that's mindfulness, the practice of maintaining a non-judgmental state of heightened or complete awareness of one's thoughts, emotions, or experiences on a moment-to-moment basis. That's what mindfulness is. It's not just drifting through life. We're stopping, wait a second, okay? We get to a situation, something happens, right? And we immediately judge it. We meet a person and we immediately judge them. Before we can even think about what we're saying, how many times the things come out of our mouths, the things cross our mind, we don't plan to say it, we don't want to say them. At the moment, it might have seemed okay, but the reality is later on we say, no, that wasn't the right thing to say, but there was no way to know at the beginning. The Gemara says the following thing. Gemara says a very interesting, very important concept, which I've referred to many times in the past, but it's also applicable here as well. And that is, Ein Adam Chayta El Shenichnas Baruch Shtus. A person does not do a sin, does not commit a sin, unless a spirit of insanity overcomes him. Because who in their right mind is going to do a sin? Come on, we're talking about God. We're talking about the creator of the universe. You don't believe in God, it's a different story. It's not like a sin, but a sin, you're doing the wrong thing. Who would do a thing like that? It's such a waste of time and energy. Even if you were driven to do it because of some bodily drive, it doesn't make a difference. What's the end result? How are you going to feel about yourself and the situation? And whatever pleasure you had is going to be eradicated by all the regret and all the backlash later on. So the Gemara said you have to be crazy to do an avera, to sin. So the classic question on that Gemara is, but we know that a crazy person is not culpable. If you lose your mind, even in the secular courts, people plead insanity. If you're going to plead insanity, that's if the Gemara itself is telling us that you have to be crazy to do a chet, so then the question becomes, so why am I responsible in the end for my chet? And the answer is, you're not really responsible for that chet. But I have to, do all chet on Yom Kippur. I can be punished for it later on. If I don't do tshuva and repent for it, I'll go to Gehenna. That's, the Torah version of purgatory. I won't get away with it. So how can you say on one hand, I'm not culpable. On the other hand, I seem to be quite culpable. So the answer is very simple. The answer is that the actual chet, and I'll give one of my favorite examples because I personally experienced this myself, right? You're going to diet. You want to lose some weight, health reasons, whatever. And you're rushing, and you don't get a chance to eat. And now you're going to a chasana, going to a wedding, and it's a very fancy wedding with lots of fancy food and lots of it all over the place, basically. And you're saying to yourself, don't eat the fattening stuff, don't eat too much food, but you're starving and you're dancing. And then there's the atmosphere of the wedding itself that makes you want to eat because everyone's having a good time. And you do. And then later on, you go home and you say to yourself, oh, I can't believe that I actually, ate all that. I did it again. And you say to yourself, how will I get around this? Well, the truth is, if you go to a wedding on an empty stomach, it's going to be very hard not to eat if that's your plan. If you're going to sit at a table with the people who speak Lashon Hara, it's going to be very hard not to be involved in Lashon Hara. So then what? What are we supposed to do in the end? The Gemara says, we learn from Shabbos. It's all in the preparation. It's all in the preparation. Meaning that if you want to maintain your diet at a fancy restaurant or at a fancy chasana, make sure before you leave to have a huge salad and kill your appetite. You might still be, enticed by the food, but not as much. You might still, be hungry a little bit when you get there, but not as much. You have way more control over the situation than if you went on an empty stomach. Likewise, if I don't want to speak Lashon Hara. I don't want to be culpable for such a serious sin as speaking derogatorily about somebody else. But last time I sat with that person or at that table, boy, it just flowed like water. I'm not sitting there tonight. I'm going someplace else. So likewise, the same thing is true as well when it comes to everyday life. Where the moments come at us, they just thrown at us. I mean, life just like it comes out of all different directions, and it's nice if you can sit down and quietly. This is perhaps one of the things that we're being afforded because of the situation today with the virus. But it's nice when you can be completely in control of the moment where everything is happening according to your schedule, your plan, as you prepare. But that's not the way life works a lot of the time. And when a person becomes mindful, and it can be a small thing, just a person decides, something, I want to feel every moment of life. I want to be part of every moment. I don't just want to react, what they call knee-jerk reactions. I don't just want to, let myself respond. Because if we understood the nature of human beings and how we're constructed and how we're built, and I sit here right now and I look at myself and I talk, I see, who I am. I see myself as I am today. I have forgotten all my life's experiences for the most part. My brain, like this camera, has been recording ever since I started. From the time I was delivered, perhaps even before that, and onward. And if I had a positive experience, that was recorded. And if I had a negative experience, that was recorded. And it all went tagged inside my brain, sitting on the shelf for future reference. And years go by, and the experiences become vast. You forget all about it. And you're sitting there. And this fantastic mechanism in your brain is so quicker than we can think for the most part. In fact, according to what I've seen recently, that very little of our day is actually conscious. Most of our day is run by the unconscious mind because we could never handle all the information. We could never process all the information. But the problem is that if you let that run, even the conscious moments, the moments you should be conscious, then you make a lot of mistakes and you miss out on a lot of life. That's just the way it is. You know, it's kind of like you're on a moving sidewalk. You have the airports or big shopping malls. You have these long moving sidewalks, and you know, some people walk on them and prepare for the end, and some people just let the sidewalk carry them the entire distance as far as they can. They might be looking at their phone, and I've seen it happen, and it's happened to me once or twice, where you forget where you are, and all of a sudden you hit the end of a thing, and it stops, and you go flying, or you almost go flying, you almost trip because change of pace, and you weren't ready for it. So, you know, the Torah is constantly pushing us to be focused. 100%, okay, you can't be 100% focused, it's very hard, but as focused as you possibly can on what you are doing. Now, over the last few weeks, because of the fact that we have had to break up the minyanim and daven at home, as a result of that, I've been on my own for a lot of the davening, and especially in the morning for shacharis. And because of that, I am no longer rushed. I'm rushed to get to by a certain point, a certain time, but for the most part, I can gear that, I can gauge that for myself. And because I have more time and I can hear myself, and I don't feel the pressure of other people around me, and I don't hear the distraction of other people around me. It's just me and God, basically. And I can sit there and I can look at the words, and as I say the word, I can actually kind of feel it. I can sense what it's trying to communicate to me just by the word itself, just by looking at the word itself, and try to, you know, imagine the letters as they go through my head and go through my mind. And once you start thinking like that, it starts to come more naturally and more automatically, and you connect to the tefillah much more, and you connect, of course, to Hashem, just by focusing, just by being aware. So the Anshe Knesset Gdol and Pirkei Avos actually told this to us. And they said, you know, there are three things that we have to know. One of them was Din. You have to be deliberate in judgment, meaning don't just respond. Be aware of what you're doing. Know your context. Know your surroundings. Know what's at stake as much as you possibly. And that is not always available at the first moment. But it's amazing what happens if you just wait one or two and you focus and you say to yourself, perhaps before you go in to a situation, to davening or to meeting or to in a relationship, you know, this is what's going to happen. And you prepare yourself in advance and you give yourself a few extra seconds to focus. And all of a sudden, it changes your complete relationship with reality. And that's what Torah, you know, is trying to promote. Now, here's the flip side of that. What's really important to understand about all this, because this is going to be the basis and the thesis of what we're going to talk about. Because mindfulness is a buzzword today for sure. It's all, I mean, it was at least before all of this took place. It was in the business world, in relationships, or books, you know, topics, videos, you know, webinars, and, you know, you name it. Everyone's talking about it. Probably even appears in movies too. Because when a topic becomes a key phrase in any particular society, so everyone seems to focus on that, try to harness it in one way or another way. But this is going to be different. It's going to be different because we're going to go further beyond what we, let's say, call secular mindfulness, beyond the average person's idea of what mindfulness might be. It's much more sophisticated, and it's very, very profound and very deep, and it's the root of all Torah. And the truth is the root of all life. So the first thing we need to establish, the first thing we need to say, the first thing we need to understand is life itself, right? Where do I live? I live in the present. But do I? Do I actually live in the present? What is present, right? Well, first of all, you have to understand what time is. So I have a definition of time as well, that time is a measured or measurable period during which an action, process, or condition exists or continues. That's very technical, right? Meaning what? Basically, it's a continuum. It's a way to measure the passing of time or the change of something. It's very important for measuring change, time itself, but it's continuous. So the truth is Does the present even really exist for us? What is the present? Well, the past we know. It's already happened. It's our memories. The future, we also know somewhat. We worry about it. Actually, pure imagination. Because if you're not a prophet, you can't possibly know the future. So we're projecting. We're imagining what the future might look like, either for good or for bad. And we tend to live one or the other, and go back and forth, or one feeds the other, meaning that the past is always affecting us, and we might worry about it, or it might irritate us, it might aggravate us because somehow it's conjuring up memories and notions that are not really real, but they're tied somehow to our past. And we worry about the future because we can't control it. That's very important to us. We love control. Man loves control. Migdal Bavel, the Tower of Babylon, control. People want control because control leads to comfort. If I can control my environment, if I can control the events of my life, I'm safe, I'm secure. But if I can't, that's where idol worship came in. People began to worship idols because worshiping God came at a cost, but they still wanted the control. So they worshiped idols instead. They brought sacrifices as a way to try to control their world. It was fictitious and illusionary, but it gave you a sense, at least at the moment, that maybe, just maybe, we're going to win this war because we brought this sacrifice to this idol. And then we have things like comfort control today and all kinds of ways to try to control our environment and lives to make ourselves safer. But we don't know the future, right? So what's the present then? Interesting enough is the present doesn't really exist technically for us, because if you can't stop time, it's always flowing. So that means there might be a moment of the present in there somewhere, but it's always already passed. In fact, the present really is a threshold over which the future becomes the past. Like a river, there's upstream and downstream, and there's a little bridge over here, and the bridge is a cutoff point. And the water from upstream goes under the bridge, and when it passes under the bridge, it's now called downstream. So the future is constantly feeding the past. Under a bridge, or over a bridge, or across a threshold, which we call the present, which is why it's so fleeting. Not only that, but even what we call the present is not exactly the present. Why? Because even as I'm talking to you right now, and especially as I'm talking to you right now, you're not actually hearing this or processing this or seeing this as it's happening on my end. For me, my mouth is moving at a certain speed at a certain time, but the time it gets to you via the internet, it's already been delayed. But the time your brain picks it up is another delay. It has to go to the back of your brain, be processed, compared past data. By the time you come up with a perception of what you're looking at or listening to, it's already passed. So even what you call the present, for the most part, by definition, actually becomes more the past. So that's the case. And where is the moment? How can we be mindful of the moment if the moment doesn't even really exist for us in the end? This is where it gets profound. We're bound by time. If you want to stop time, technically speaking, you'd have to travel at least a little bit faster than the speed of light. That means you'd have to move 186,000 miles or 299,792 kilometers per second. If you could somehow manage to travel that fast, you could stop time. But no one can do that. Not yet, as far as we know, at least not in our world. So we can't even come close to that. If that is the case, then for us, basically, time is constantly fleeting, constantly flowing, and constantly moving. Can't stop time. Can't have the moment, can't be in the moment. So a person can argue and say, well, it doesn't really matter anyhow. Because as long as we think we can do it, as long as it feels like we're doing it, as long as our life seems to represent, act as if we are doing it, isn't that what all that counts? Well, to some degree, yes, because you see it works to some degree, but not completely. And if there's a better way, why not? Why not take it? Because if it's not the real thing, and this is very important, you're not going to get the pleasure out of life that life has to give you. You're not going to have it because you're only getting a Thompson's, a sample of it. Just like, for example, the Shabbos is 1/60th of the world to come. It's not 2/60th. It's not 3/60th, although it can increase it. But for the most part, automatically, if you keep Shabbos properly and you focus and use it the proper way, you get 1/60th. Some say it's 1/60th because that's the measurement at which time halachically something is batal, non-existent. If accidentally a person drops milk into a fleishik stew, into a chillin, and it's just a drop of milk into a hot chillin that's being stirred around, and it didn't happen purposely. There are halachic, guidelines for this, but just in theory, and right, even though the milk molecularly is still there, from a halachic point of view, it's not there. So likewise, Shabbos is a view of the world to come, but Ke'ilu, it's as if it's not really there completely. But you can improve it. That's just the starting point. You can make it 2/60th, 3/60th. For a person to simply say, well, the rabbis say that only 1/60th, and assume that's all you're going to get, is to deny yourself the reality of Shabbos. Likewise, if you are prepared to be satisfied with what we call the moment and what we call getting into the moment, and that's enough for you, then you will deny yourself the quality of life. Incredible, awesome, exhilarating quality of life that the moment has to offer. I call it the atomic moment. Like an atomic bomb, take an atom, and you divide it and you cause chain reactions and everything. This tiny little atom, can't even see it, but you split it, massive. Tiny little moment with all this energy pent up inside, and you know what, to release it, it's a whole different story, it's a whole different life. So how do you do it? If you can't stop time, then how can you grab the moment? How can you be tophus to moments? There's one other way. And this is what the Torah is telling us. And the amazing thing is, it's all over Torah literature. But like everything in life, if you approach it with a certain perspective, and you're missing certain key points, you can look at the answer and never notice it for what it actually is. But once you hear it, you see it, it's like a runway lighting up at nighttime. So you can just see clearly the path you're supposed to go. So what is that idea? So if you can't stop time, you can rise above it. You can actually rise above time. We do it on Shabbos, we do it on Yantif, we do it lots of times in the course of our day, if we are living by Torah the way Torah is meant to be lived by. If we're just doing it like another religion, just following the rules, doing what has to be done, putting in my time, punching the clock. Today I daven Shachris from 7 to 7:50. Yotze, did my mitzvah, did my obligation. I'm now free to have breakfast. Oh, now time for mincha, and maybe learn some Torah. Here's some Gemara. Like, you're doing it just as a loyal citizen of the Torah world. You get schar for that, true, 100%. It's great. It's a good level to start off with, but that's not what God gave to us. Clearly, look at the Mount Sinai experience. Look at Mitzrayim, and we will look at that. Look at the Shir Shel Yam, the song the Jewish people sang at the sea. So we look at that, and this is a mistake, from our perspective. We imagine ourselves today, how does that song work in terms of us? Well, just like we get very excited sometimes and want to sing, a big check comes in the mail, I want to sing. So, I could sing, some song from the 60s, or I could sing a song to God. Well, it sounds better to sing, a song to God because I'm praising God to sing. No, so I'm happy. And if I got, a great event happens in my life, I'm prepared. I want to sing. Fantastic. But that's not what went on. Something else went on. And again, B'ezras Hashem, next week we'll discuss that. But something else happened when the Jewish people left Mitzrayim. We didn't need 10 plagues. One plague was enough. Or some other reason why the Egyptians would be wiped away. The Jewish people had to leave. That was the whole thing. Yetzias Mitzrayim. The leaving of Mitzrayim, leaving Egypt. That was what it was all about, right? So one plague would have worked. Wipe away the Egyptians. Or have them conquered by some other nation that's friendly to the Jewish people. There's many ways that God could have taken the Jewish people out of Egypt. Many ways. But he shows the most fantastic sound and light show mankind has ever seen and will ever see until Mashiach comes, which is supposed to be a lot bigger and a lot better, because we need more in our generation. It's not enough. We have Hollywood, things like that. We've seen fantastic stuff. We need to be more impressed. So something happened in Mitzrayim. We left Egypt. And then it got bigger by Yam Suf, by the splitting of the sea. Because that's also something that didn't have to happen. In fact, the only reason why it did happen was because God made us have to go back to the sea so it could happen. We were past the sea. We left the Egyptians behind. They wanted to flee after us. God could have made their chariots fall apart. Again, everything was possible. The question that the Meforshim asks is, why was it necessary? Why did God make us turn around, come back, get stranded by the sea, just so he could split it and drown the Egyptians and save the Jewish people? So he wanted to impress us. He wanted to say, look what I've done for you. Yeah, it's all true. But God's more sophisticated than that. There was something else he was teaching us. He doesn't need our praise. He likes it for our own good. It doesn't build up his confidence. It's not like God says, I'm not feeling so good today. Can someone say something nice about me, please? Oh, he's saying something. Oh, God, that feels a lot better now. Whoa, look what he said about me. That's nasty. But that's not God. God is completely above our karbanis, our sacrifices, above our prayers, above our mitzvahs. There's nothing that we can give to God he didn't have before. That's a principle of Judaism. Okay, fine. But what's it all for then? What's all for us? See, and of course, Har Sinai, the giving of Torah. Also a very strange event, very unusual. The Jewish people died twice. God spoke, boom, we died on the spot. Overwhelming. Too much of a revelation of God. We couldn't handle it. So then, God brought us back to life once again. And then he killed us again with the second commandment. And after the second command, we turn to Moshe and say, Moshe, nothing, this dying, coming back business. It's a little, where's you out somewhat? So how about you talk to God on our behalf, right? Maybe, you can send us a WhatsApp after and tell us what he said. Or post it, on your Facebook page, whatever, But the Jewish people, but what was it necessary for? Why did we have to go through all that? Because God was teaching us about life. Not like the way Cain understood it, not like the way the people of Babylonia understood it when they built the tower, not like the Egyptians understood life, but the way Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov understood life. And it's a secret that's so powerful and so profound that if you don't know it, it's like you're living in a whole different world. And somehow in the course of time, we lost it too, except for maybe a few people. And even the people who might actually have it or know it and live by it don't fully understand necessarily what it is they have to give it over to somebody else. So what is that thing? What is that concept? The concept is the following thing. If you want to rise above time, you have to attach yourself to something that is above time. Well, there's only one thing above time. It's the opposite of man. Man has a future and man has the past because man's constantly changing. And the world in which man lives constantly changes as well. So there can be a future and there can be a past. It's the present we have a problem with. By God, it's exact opposite, the complete reverse. He has no future and he has no past. There's only the present by God. Only. He's above time. He doesn't change. There's nothing to measure. He's perfect in every way. In every way. Time is not relevant by God. So by definition, he is the present. God is the present moment. And if you attach yourself to God, you attach yourself to the moment. What do I mean by this? What am I actually saying in the end? I'm saying the following thing. There's mindfulness, which we spoke about. There's the classic definition that you can find online and in dictionaries. And then there's the Torah version, the Torah concept of mindfulness. People think it's two different things. They see religious people trying to cleave to God, try to cling to God. says, right, those who cleave to God are alive this day. Why? Because if you cling to God, who's the source of life, you get life. All the life we have, an ongoing business, every aspect of our life is just God. It's not the body that keeps us alive. It's the soul that keeps the body alive, but the soul's a piece of God. You eat fruits and vegetables. It's not the minerals that keep you alive. It's the holy sparks inside the minerals that are being carried by the food to your body to feed your soul, so your soul can feed your body. So the upshot of all of this is that if a person wants to be mindful of the moment, if a person really wants to be in the moment, by definition, they have to be above time, because we can't stop time. But if you want to be above time, there's only one way to do that, and that's to attach yourself to the eternal. That's the basic idea. It's not such a basic idea. It's a very complex and deep idea. And the whole world looks and they see, okay, there's a thing called God, if you believe in him, and he's this master of the universe who basically has demands about what we have to be and how we have to live our lives. And he claims to have the power to punish if we do the wrong thing and reward, hopefully, if we do the right thing. And then we have a book of instructions, which is very complex and very detailed, telling you what you have to do to be a loyal servant of God. But that's not life as far as people are concerned. What do you get out of that? It's slavery. Which answers another question, by the way. And that question, it's also a question that's been asked all through the ages. Hashem says, the first of the 10 commandments, the foundation of all of Torah and all of history for that matter. I am the Lord your God who took you out of Egypt. And therefore, right, you have to worship me. You have to be my people. I took you out of Egypt. You were enslaved. But everyone asks the obvious question. Well, if you hadn't put us down there in the first place, you wouldn't have to redeem us. You can't claim to have saved us if you put us in danger in the first place. You took us down there. This thing happened, and you didn't stop it from happening, and you told us to go down, back in Yaakov's day. And so fine, we were down there and finally got enslaved, and you took us out. Fantastic, but it's you who put us there in the first place. So the only answer you can give to that is, yeah, you're 100% right, but that was a good thing. Putting you down in Egypt and taking you out was all part of one thing. In fact, when Moshe complains to God and says to him, he says, how could you increase the slavery? I didn't sign up for that. You told me I'd go down to Mitzrayim, and that I would have to talk to Paro, and Paro's going to say no, and only after 10 plagues we finally go free. That I heard. Okay, it was also difficult, but that I was willing to accept. But you told me nothing about increasing the slavery. And then God comes back and says to Moshe, he said, I don't understand what you're complaining about. You're watching the redemption in process, the slavery being increased, the Jewish people complaining, crying out that there's no tomorrow. And God says that's the redemption in process. And you're complaining because God was transforming us. He was changing us. Sometimes you have to come close to death to understand what life is about. It shouldn't be that way, but that's the way it often works. In fact, that's really behind a lot of the activities today of many people. People get onto roller coasters, like life isn't scary enough. They get onto roller coasters that go down, dangerous. I mean, people have accidents before. It's not, they've done a good job at keeping it as safe as possible, but people pay money to be terrorized. They pay money to go to horror films. They take incredible risks. They jump out of airplanes with parachutes that might not open. It's amazing. And that's not enough, right? In order to be able to compete in sports, they put their body through incredible punishing experiences on an ongoing basis. And they deny themselves all kinds of things, or they go to college and they suffer there instead. They get a degree. People are constantly, putting themselves in a situation. Why? Why do we have to tempt death? Because people want to feel alive. That's the greatest feeling of all, just to feel alive. Now, there's feeling alive and there's feeling alive. There's feeling alive, like I got my heart, it's beating Baruch Hashem, and my brain seems to be functioning, thank God, and and I can get around, and take care of myself. Okay, I don't have everything I want, but I'm living. I'm alive. This person, God forbid, is sick, or this person is in jail. There's living and there's living. But then there's this fantastic area of life where the exhilaration is absolutely tremendous. I was once walking with a rabbi and somebody who had recently become a Baal Tshuva, and it was kind of funny and also inspiring. The person was so excited. He'd discovered that Torah is true. He was keeping Shabbos, keeping mitzvahs, and he was talking about how he'd never known all of his life. He always said religion was backwards, archaic. Judaism was made up by man, etc., etc. The whole story. And he discovered differently. And now he was so excited. He was so enthusiastic, and he couldn't stop talking about it. He was like, literally, it got to the point I started to feel guilty, like, I should feel this way too. And he's all. And the rabbi turns to this person and says, "You know why you're so excited? Yeah, you know why you're so excited? You discovered your free will. You discovered your bechira. That's what happened." Well, what was he doing until now? Until he became religious, until he discovered the truth of Torah. What was he doing until now? I mean, he was 21, 22 years of age. He was making decisions his entire time, except for one fundamental difference. And that is, every decision he made was one that he felt like making, for the most part. Even the ones that were sacrifices ultimately was for something he bought into. But now that he discovered Torah and mitzvahs, mitzvahs, they go against your basic nature, purposely. That's why it's a tzivui, it's a commandment. The Gemara says that Rabbi Alexandri, when he used to finish his davening, he used to finish his Shemona Esrei, he had a special Yehivatzon. And he would pray to God and say, "God, you and I both know perfectly well, if it wasn't for the Sa'or Shebe'isa, which means the yeast or the leaven in the dough, referring to the Yetzer Hara in the body of a person, because a person's body is compared to like dough. If it wasn't for the Yetzer Hara inside of me, and also the oppression of nations, I would serve you day and night. It's what I want to do. It's what I'm driven to do. We're all driven to do. All of us are driven to do this. But I have a Yetzer Hara that tells me it's meaningless, tells me I'm tired, tells me I've got better things to do, telling me there's more fun over there. It distracted me away from it and killing us. The Gemara says that every day the Yetzer Hara gets up to kill a person. Gets smarter, gets sharper to kill a person. It's like literally you're sleeping with a murderer. And you wake up in the morning, the famous story of the Chafetz Chaim, who got up one morning, I'm sure I've told us about several times already, but it's one of my favorite stories. It's very short, very simple, and so instructive. The Chafetz Chaim gets up in the morning, and his Yetzer Hara says to him, in whatever form it takes, I'm sure he just felt tired, like going back to bed. And the Yetzer Hara says to him, he says, "You're an old man. After all this time of sacrificing yourself, getting up early in the morning to pray to God and to serve God like a loyal servant, surely at this age, you're entitled to sleep in. Why are you up so early?" And the Chafetz Chaim answered back and said, "If you're up this early, there's no reason why I shouldn't be up this early too." It shows you the dynamic, which we'll also talk about, God willing, next week, of the Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination, and how it affects us. What does it mean it wants to kill us? So my Rosh Hashiva, Noach Weinberg Tzal, had all kinds of ways, all kinds of analogies to teach us various different things to make us more conscious of our time and how to use it. And he would say things like, would you sit there and throw $5 bills out the window? And we're all thinking, of course not. You have to be crazy to do something like that. So he says, why throw 5 minutes out the window? Like that. He said, would you commit suicide? God forbid. Hopefully not. I'd like to believe that I wouldn't. He says, well, every time you waste time, it's partial suicide. Suicide just ends your life. When you waste time, you're not living. You're not doing anything, constructive. Everyone needs a vacation. Everybody needs a break. Everyone needs to meditate, relax. That's all. But that's for something good to come after it. But just to waste time, just to space out for no reason, nothing constructive, just because that's what feels good at the moment, partial suicide. Like shakes you up and makes you think differently. The Yetzer Hara, how does he kill us? By making us lose track of the moment, by pulling us away from the moment. I am absolutely amazed in a negative way, absolutely amazed how many times I'm about to make a sheyatzar, the bracha after coming out of the bathroom. Today, more than ever, because health is a conscious issue for all of us today, but anytime it should be that way. Health is so crucial, so important. We need it, we depend upon it for the quality of life. And we have a simple bracha. It's a little bit long. It's not like making a bracha on an apple before or after, but it's a little bit long, but it's very also detailed because we need to know what's going on inside the body and not forget that, how easily things can go wrong. Yatzar said wisdom, like pipes, there's a billion things that can go wrong in the body. As one doctor once said to a patient, don't ask me why you're sick. Ask me why you're not sick more often. Because a billion things can go wrong in your body. And the fact that they don't is an unbelievable miracle. You cannot stop thinking about it. So I come into the bathroom and I say to myself, Ashayatzar, think about it. It's only a few seconds. When you do the, time it, it's not that long, a few seconds. And I may even start off, with kavanah. And then all of a sudden the book is over and I realize I got lost along the way somehow. Something distracted me. I didn't even know what it was. Standing in a hallway, there's nothing going on, nothing to watch, and yet somehow my mind drifted in that short period of time. Or benching, or davening, Shemona Esrei. How much distraction comes into our life. That's the Sitra Achra. That's how it pulls us away from God. God is the present. God is the moment. You attach yourself to God. You are in the moment. But not only are you in the moment, you're attached to the source of life. You're attached to the source of life. That's the pleasure. The pleasure a person has in life. It doesn't make a difference if you're on a roller coaster. You go, whoa, you go down, right? And spin with the heads off, put your hands up. The pleasure is an aspect of God. Even an illicit pleasure, as fleeting and as illegal as it might be, is somehow an aspect of the pleasure we get from God. There's no other pleasure but God, because there's no other pleasure but the feeling of being alive. And the feeling of being alive comes from being attached to the source of life, God himself. So B'ezras Hashem, that's what we're going to explore in the next couple of weeks. Because, right now, this sounds like some religious jargon. You have to be attached to God. You have to be real with the reality of God and be loyal to the mitzvahs and all that. No, it's more than that. The mitzvah itself, in fact, the word sivui, mitzvah itself, comes from the word that means pipe. The mitzvah itself is a portal to the moment. That's the idea. The mitzvah itself is a portal to the moment. If you enter that mitzvah the proper way, you have the proper understanding, you're mindful of what you're doing. When you're putting on your tefillin, when you're saying the Shemona Esrei, when you're benching birchas hamazon, or making a motzi, whatever it is that you're doing at that moment in time, and you're not only focused on the religious aspect of it, but the life aspect of it, you go through a different time frame. You literally leave this world. Your body might be here, just like on Shabbos. Your body may remain, you may still be here, but the reality of who you are is someplace else. And the proof I'll bring to that, B'ezras Hashem, next week, is based upon a Zohar. Because the Zohar says that there really are two aspects to us. There's a part of us that's down here right now, and there's a part that's already in the world to come. Olam haba. So you'll say to me, what the Olam haba is, the world to come. It's to come, not here right now. Well, how's that possible? If something's eternal, it means by definition it has no beginning, has no end. So the world to come has to already exist now. What about the people who have died and gone there? So the world to come must already exist by definition to be the world to come. And Kabbalah actually explains this, because it turns out the world to come is not a time-related thing. It's a more of a spheros, like it's a level-related thing. The world to come is up there, not there in the future. It already exists. So why can't I see it? Well, the truth is I'm just blind to it. I sense it. My soul's attached to it to some degree. On Shabbos, I get to have a little taste of it. But there's like a spiritual umbilical cord that joins the part of me that's already there to the part that's down here. If I'm focused down here, if I trap myself in the world of materialism and physicality, the world of Amalek, then I can't sense that. And I will not receive that much shefa, that much blessing or light from that other aspect of me. And I won't feel it in my body. But if I do allow myself to rise from level to level to level, what Kabbalah calls the nefesh, and then the ruach, and then the neshama, and I let more of that light come in, I literally make myself more eternal. I make myself above time too, to whatever extent I can. The Gemara speaks about 7 people who literally just pass in this world without dying. It's possible, not likely for most of us, but that's okay. That's not the important thing. The important thing right now is learning how to access that type of mindfulness. That's called Torah mindfulness. And we'll find out how not only does it make us more complete people right now, but that's actually the sod and the secret of redemption as well. Because it turns out, we'll see God willing towards the end, that mindfulness is the key to redemption, which is maybe perhaps what we're supposed to be learning right now as well. Because certainly the situation today is making us more mindful.